Hi, you're here with us for Your Story, His Glory with Janelle Barker. Today, we get the privilege of hearing the second part of Nathan Hitchcock's testimony about how he was used in missions on the mission field. And if you have not listened, make sure that you go back and listen to the previous episode where he shared about how he got started into missions, how he became a Christian, and his experience in South Sudan. You will not want to miss it. So today we get the privilege of our second episode with Nathan Hitchcock. Thank you for being willing to speak with us again, Nathan, and share again your heart for the Lord and for missions and just your willingness to be used by Him and the way He has directed your life and the example of how to live out your faith and how to walk forward in faith with Jesus. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So last time we left off, and you, spoiler alert, go back and listen, pause now if you don't want to hear the spoiler. At the last episode, we found out that you were able to go home at Christmas because the war had begun again in South Sudan. You get to meet up with Amy. And will you pick up from there and kind of let us know how things unfolded in your life?
So I got back the 23rd of December, and Amy was there to pick me up at the airport along with some other friends and family. And as we said before, like we had kind of said that we're going to put this on pause, if not interminably. And so we sat in the car together, and I said, "How's it going?" And both of us had experienced a lot in that time. Amy had lost her grandfather, and I had just gone through all the stuff that was going on in South Sudan. And we started picking up the pieces. We said, "I think we should start dating again," and Amy agreed that we should kind of pick up the pieces and start back again. And it was just incredible to kind of see that relationship reform, and that's what I had prayed for. And I think we had also kind of renewed, and I had left behind the idol that could be a relationship and really approached us being together more as seeking the Lord, and I praise the Lord for that. um we continued dating, and then in the summertime I started the nurse practitioner program. It was May of 2014 I started, and Amy was in that would be her second year of residency at that point. And I knew I wanted to marry Amy. Amy wasn't as sure, I'll say that, because I think she's a strong, independent woman, and so I think she was afraid more that it would hinder her relationship with the Lord to be married. And I was pretty sure about it, but she wasn't. And I had the ring in my pocket a lot, and I carried it around. I'll say that. And I carried it around trying to figure out opportunities for me to ask. And sorry.
Nowadays, it's a whole big plan to ask, and there's got to be a videographer, and there's got to be the right music and the right spot. So I love that you were waiting for that spontaneous, perfect moment.
Well, I'll say I tried the spontaneous moment. So she knew it was coming. I'll say that, and I would carry it around just in case. Like I was like, this is a great moment for it. But eventually, I actually I almost died. I had surgery in July, because I was starting full-time nursing school at that point. I was still doing part-time over the summer to get a couple classes out of the way. And during that time, I said, I'm running out of my health insurance for a little bit. I should get the surgery over with a month before I I run out of it. And so it was a elective surgery. It was fine. But then I got a pulmonary embolism after the surgery and spent about a week in the hospital. Uh, Luckily, we were kind of able to identify the problem, and but it put a lot of damper on different situations, including me asking Amy to marry me. And Amy, being a practical woman, she said, well, if we are going to get married, I either can take a week worth of vacation in the fall, or I can take a week worth of vacation in the spring for us to get married so we can have a honeymoon for that week. And we talked about it, and I hadn't even pulled out a ring yet, but she was already figuring this out. And she's being that practical, and she knew it was going to happen. But yeah, that we had planned for October was the plan, but I still hadn't asked her yet. But then I spent another week in the hospital, and at that point, I got out, and a week later, I wrote. I was like, "Fine, I'll do something more romantic and planned." And I wrote a song for her, and I played it, and she looks at me during the song and is being very attentive. I'll say that. And she gets to the end of it, and she says, "Well, thank you for the song. Let's pray about this." And at that point, I was like, "Oh man, this is the most nerve-wracking prayer I'm gonna ever say." And she's like, "You want to go first?" And I was like, "Sure." Like, and I don't even know exactly the prayer, but basically it was like, "Lord, if it be your will, I would love for this to happen, and I'd love to be married to this woman." And Amy basically kind of said the same. And then I was like, "Well, that was nerve-wracking. What is she gonna say?" And she says, "All right, ring me." And I put the ring on her finger, and we intended to watch a movie afterwards. And she's like, "What do you want to do now?" And the answer should have been, I guess, on her mind was call people and let them know. My mind was like, "Oh, you want to go back to the movie?" And she said, "No, we're going to call people." And so we called my parents. We called everybody to let them know. And Amy's parents knew, because I dropped by their house and talked to them about it and gotten permission to ask her before. And it was a quick, I'll say that, preparation before the wedding, because we said, you know what, we're going to do it in the fall. So I'd asked her at the end of July, basically. And so we had a couple months to arrange a wedding and do it quickly. And praise the Lord, my school, while I was doing schooling, I was able to kind of sit outside the front porch of the front stairs of a building and just do a lot of wedding planning while Amy was working a lot. And through a couple sleepless nights and a lot of work on our part, because we didn't want anybody to like pay for anything or anything like that, we did it all. And I praise the Lord. Amy bought some napkins at not a thrift store, but a discount decoration store, and said, "This is going to be our colors. This is what we're pivoting on." So we would just carry around this napkin with us to everywhere we would go and be like, "Do these colors match?" But it was beautiful, and our families were both there, and it was really a good time. And Reggie was he was the officiant of it, and we asked him to do the marriage part from the Princess Bride, and he said, "No, I'm not doing that." And that was the night before. And then the morning of, or the evening of the wedding or whatever, he goes and he starts off with the speech, and it surprised us all. But it was intended, and I'm glad that we did it. The focus was on Christ. And I said, "Reggie, you preach as much of the gospel as you're possible," because my parents had been divorced by that time, and my dad's still an atheist. And I said, this may be an opportunity that my dad may get to hear about Christ. And so I'm glad that Reggie was there, and he preached it. And we were married, and at that point we said, let's finish up residency for Amy and DMP school for me. And once we get done, we'll go overseas. And our intention was to go to Haiti. That's how Amy and I met, was that she said, "I'm going to be a long-term missionary surgeon in Haiti." And I was like, "Yeah, that's what I want to do. You got the right plan," because I don't know where I'm going to go yet. So that was the intention when we got married, was to do long-term missions, and that was our goal and focus. And we were coming to the last year of our programs officially, and we signed on with Samaritan's Purse. They have a post-residency program, is what it's called, where doctors can kind of have their first 2 years of mission work kind of paid for and started. They don't have to worry about raising funds. They just, once they graduate from their residency program, then they go straight to the field, so to speak, afterwards. So they don't have to worry about trying to raise funds while they're in residency. And it's also to kind of help them transfer to a long-term mission agency, and they help you find a hospital as well if you don't have one. So we started interviewing for that program, and we said, we don't have an official area. Haiti is where we've gone before, where Amy had gone before, and I had been to South Sudan. There weren't any mission hospitals that were in either location that could house a surgeon, so to speak, equipment and staffing wise. And so we said we're open to anywhere that you want to send us, and they accepted us to the program, and then they sent us 2 different hospitals that we could consider from that point. One of them was a hospital in Egypt, and the other was a hospital in Liberia. They were both good choices, at least on paper. They could take a surgeon. They had the right housing and staff and everything like that. And we started talking to both hospitals. And after about a month of prayer and discussion, we decided on Liberia.
I wanted to interject that it was during this time that I met you.
Oh, yeah.
And I really was shocked at your intention of, we're going to finish this medical part of our schooling, and then we're going to the mission field. Because I never heard anybody say that before. And I remember discussing with Joey, like, that's a huge expense. Like, there's so many pieces that have to come together. I had not even heard of people doing that straight out of school. And so even though we have had a heart for missions forever, that's just something that we have always, loved to support and hear about, and just the excitement of it. But still, I just thought that these people are radical. Like these people, and a little bit naive because they're super young. And so let's just see how the Lord puts this together. Mm-hmm. But it was so exciting and refreshing also to meet someone who just out of the gate said, hi, we're going to finish this medical thing, and we're going to the mission field.
I mean, that was the intention. In your eyes. Yeah.
Yes.
That was the intention always. Amy from, I don't know how old, but she started reading like missionary biographies, and I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And even during medical school, she went to Haiti and worked in an orphanage, and it was incredible to see her live working and continue to affirm that, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. And she even went to do some stuff during medical school, like at a mission hospital. And because of that, she knew she was kind of on the fence on what to do residency wise at that point. And then after that mission hospital visit, she's like, yeah, I'm going to be a surgeon. That's what I want to do. This is what I'm going to be. And that it had always been that way for Amy. And then the moment that I got saved and went to that first trip in Belize, like that had always been that way for me. And I guess given that paradigm shift, you're just like, it doesn't matter what happens in the between time, but that's what I'm going to do. And if it happens, it happens. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And we just kept walking through doors, and we just always imagined that was what's going to happen. It's kind of like when somebody says, what would you be doing if you weren't doing what you're doing now? And you kind of give that like blank stare for a little bit and say, I have no idea what I'm going to do. Like, I don't know what I'd be doing otherwise. And that's what we said. We still don't know what we'd be doing otherwise if we weren't doing what we're doing now. And so that's the way that we prepared for it. And you just kind of step up and say, yeah, we'll do it.
I love it. It's kind of a smack in my face a little bit. like, how dare I?
I think everybody's brave though, like that, and they just don't realize it. Like when people, well, they'll say, "Oh yeah, this is what I've been doing," and you're like, "How could you do that?" And everybody's called differently.
Yeah. And for things to have been so clearly set forth for you all, for you both, and then for God to place you together with this same heart and mind in His plans and purposes for your life. Beautiful. So take us to Liberia.
Okay.
What was mission work like doing that with your new wife? Okay. And tell us what you all walked through.
So we always, like, we done missions separately prior to this occasion. Like Amy had worked in Haiti and Togo, and I had South Sudan, and I had Kenya, and I had Belize before that. And we didn't know how to function together as a unit yet. We were still newly married. We'd been married for it was a year-ish at that point, and we didn't know what to think, and we knew that we were just stepping up into what we thought was just the same thing together. But we got there in January of 2018 was when our contract started with Samaritan's Purse, and what we expected was completely different. The mission hospital was, I wouldn't say vibrant concerning the Lord. It was a well-equipped hospital, equipment-wise, but not with staffing and with a heart for the Lord. And we saw it, and it was difficult to see that. And then Amy started work as a surgeon in this environment, and she had never been outside of an American context before for surgery, and so that was new, kind of seeing the patients where in the States, like general surgery is mostly in the abdomen. You kind of do some extra stuff. But general surgery overseas in a mission hospital was general surgery. You just do everything if you can. And that was the expectation. And so that was a new environment for Amy, where she was pushed a lot beyond the bounds of what her normal training was. And that was the intention of the program, is to help you kind of step into those boundaries alongside another missionary to help disciple you through those difficulties and to help you kind of catch up with the cultural aspect of the care that you need to do inside of a mission hospital, along with the expectations of care and lots of other different things. And we stepped on the ground in January, at the beginning of January, and at the end of January, the surgeon that was supposed to be kind of discipling her and helping her through that left. And it left us in a really tough spot. And Samaritan's Purse initially said, "Hey, we don't think that you should be there. They're not fulfilling their side of the obligation concerning the need for a discipling doctor alongside Amy to help, like, guide her through that whole process." But having our previous experience and knowing what that would mean consequence-wise, that there would be no surgeon for however long until they could find a long-term surgeon or someone else to come fill in the gaps, that we said, we have to stay. We've just gotten here. We prepared all of our lives to get to this point, so to speak. Like, why would we leave now? We're 2 weeks in, so to speak. And that was a really tough decision on our part, because we knew we were stepping into unknown territory, and we knew that it was going to cost us. And we started working. Amy started working as much as she could.
Can I pause you for 1 second?
Yes.
That's a very specific statement. You knew that it was going to cost us. In what way did you foresee this being a difficulty and a costly decision?
So we'd done missions before, and we knew that, like, you acquire trauma in missions. You know that you're gonna get hurt. It's not like you're stepping into play. It's not like flag football. Instead, it's like rugby. You know you're stepping in to get hurt physically. You know you're stepping in to get hurt emotionally. There's going to be death. There's going to be long hours. There's going to be difficult times. And we knew that. And I don't think we fully understood the magnitude of that either, though. We knew that it was going to cost us. We didn't know how much that would be, and we didn't know how long that would take for it to happen. But at the same time, we knew emotionally, spiritually, physically, we were stepping into a lot of pain and hurt.
Because of your past experience and the Lord preparing you in other places,
Yeah.
you could fully.
I don't think fully, but we could anticipate that it would happen.
And so you kind of knowingly stepped forward.
Yeah.
In compassion.
Yeah.
Knowing
definitely
that they would have nothing.
Yeah. And Amy and I saw a lot of miracles. We saw a lot of hurt. I'll say that too. Amy especially, where we, in an American context, you always think of, it's called a morbidity and mortality conference. Every Friday or something like that, you get together, you talk about all the ways that you went wrong, basically, and all the ways that you're going to go right in the future. It's a good thing because it helps you kind of self-evaluate. It's a bad thing when you're kind of playing it in your own head over and over again that, this is what you did wrong, this is what you need to fix, because you know the score, so to speak. You know how bad you're doing, all the death that's happening, and it gets easy for people to say, this is all my fault, this is all the things that I've done wrong, I'm just an awful person, I don't know why I'm here. It would be the easiest way to think about it. And it started weighing on Amy a lot, and it weighed on both of us, because at that point, when there was a surgeon that was there, the load was split. But after that point, Amy became the solo surgeon. And when that happened, she took on twice the workload in a hospital that wasn't functioning well staff-wise and wasn't functioning well spiritually either. And it became quickly draining. And luckily, there were a couple other couples that were there that were recognizing that with us as well. And they were working through it as well and attempting to slowly but surely change things. But it didn't feel fast enough, and it didn't help our situation in the moment. And we kind of got into this, I would say, rhythm of difficulty that we would just, Amy would leave for the hospital and be gone for days at a time. And the only way that I would see her would be kind of sitting outside the operating room and waiting to give her a sandwich or something. I might make sure that she ate for the day. And I was at home, and I wasn't really doing a lot with my skills or anything like that. I tried to fill in lots of different ways, and I'm a pretty good jack of all trades, and so I would fix things that broke in the hospital a lot. I would work on kind of educating the nurses, and my other job was to work in the ER. I think it was 4 or 5 days a week, but it would mostly just kind of be the mornings, and I'd fill in for other folks to help them, give them a break. But most of my work was outside the house, trying to manage everything else that was just life in a mission hospital and on a mission compound. And that side of things we hadn't done before. Like I had to learn how to, what's the right way to go get groceries, because you have to buy your own groceries, and you have to manage your own stuff with Samaritan's Purse to make sure that your documents are up to date and get your visas and get all this other stuff done. And so I started learning all that stuff to help make sure that Amy could just focus on being in the hospital. And it was just difficult to kind of watch her side of things, and we both knew that we were just acquiring a whole host of trauma, but just to kind of watch it and be helpless to do so, to fight it. And we had talked to our senior people on the ground, and the folks that were there, our director that was there on the compound, he wasn't medical. He didn't really understand how difficult it would be to just walk away, but he would say, just don't go to the hospital. And we're like, but people will die. The moment you step away is when people start dying. And it's so hard to say that to somebody, and not understand it, but he didn't really understand. And it was difficult for us to keep doing that. And luckily, I'd say, so we started that. And then after begging and begging and begging, be like, we need more surgeons, we need more people, the staff besides us. They sent a missionary, a missionary through Samaritan's Purse that was a surgeon to come help. And that was in May. And he showed up and was like, man, you guys should not have been doing this. Like, this is a difficult situation, and doing this alone is impossible. And he was getting burnt out just showing up at the hospital for the month that he was there.
And how many months had you been there?
At that point, we had been there. That was our 5th month of being in it. And so it was difficult. And then they gave us kind of another glimmer of hope that there was going to be a surgeon that was going to be there for long term. And he was going to be there for, longer term. He was there for 2 months, and he showed up the first day, and he started trying to take call that Amy was doing, because Amy would show up to the hospital and then she would stay there for days, and she'd come home occasionally for a meal, but otherwise she was at the hospital working most of the time. And he showed up, and what we thought was going to be like another person to help alongside of Amy, he took call the first weekend and said, this is not a good situation. I don't think I can take call. And they did help in some ways during the daytime, but the problem was that Amy knew the culture enough and knew enough of the things to do independent practice, so to speak. And Amy was being both the surgeon and the nurse and the everything for the patient. Typically, there wasn't enough staff to really take care of the patients at the best days, and then a lot of the staff were, I would say, apathetic from just the trauma that they experienced from their war. That Liberia's civil war was over, but a lot of the people that had grown up for the last 20 years had experienced all the horrors of war, and they were just trying to survive. And it left a lot of broken people, and those broken people were trying to pick up the pieces and get back to normal life too. And it was difficult to really motivate people to do their jobs. And so a lot of times we picked up the gaps between jobs, and I would show up there too to help out at the ER. And a lot of nights I would show up to help out with Amy doing stuff in the middle of the night, just trying to take care of patients. But yeah, so we were trying to do all that, and surgeons that were coming couldn't do that. They once again had the American context of what a general surgeon should do, but this situation was different. But it was more encouraging, but it was not helpful, so to speak. For the work hours, it was not helpful as much as we had anticipated and hoped for. And at least they had started lining up more and more surgeons, and we had one that was coming that had done missions at Liberia at the hospital before, and knew their way around. And they said they're coming to help out it was September at that point. But before that, we were floundering, and we had a lot of just difficulty and heartache. And I'll give an example of just things that broke us. We call it the worst day that we had, where we were trying to post blog posts to try to put not a positive spin, but to help people know about us and to help people know that we were alive and doing okay. But we weren't, but we would try to post blog posts, and we went out to the beach because we live next to the beach. It's it's funny that we're like suffering for the Lord on the beach, so to speak, was the joke we had. And so we said, well, let's go out to the beach and take a couple pictures, and just so that we can have something for the blog post. And Amy had, this was like a moment of time that she had off to hang out. And we go out to this rock that's on a point, and we were just going to like take fun pictures. And Amy's up on top of this rock, and the waves were coming in. The tide was starting to come in, and it knocked her over, and in like off the rock and into the water. And the water's not that deep. I'd say it was like 2 feet or something like that. But she's getting beat up by barnacles, and the tide keeps coming in and like trying to drown her. And so I've got my phone, and I had her phone because she handed it to me. She said, "You just take my phone and take the picture, and then we'll be done." And then she's, it's awful to think about, but she's in 2 foot of water and like nearly drowning because she got knocked over. The tide keeps knocking her down. And so I put both of our phones in our pocket, and I come out there and I pull her up. And now both of our phones are dead. I somehow lost my wedding ring during the entire occasion. And we didn't get any good photos. And we come up on the beach, and we were just soaked from head to toe in just like water and seaweed. And we look at each other, and we were just like, this is Liberia. This is what it is. It just beats you up. And we just wept. It wasn't, I mean, had we any more resilience or any more skills or anything like that, or I don't want to say like life skills, or maybe we could have shrugged it off, but that was kind of just the breaking point for us, was that like, this is an awful place and it feels awful and we don't know what to do about it. And we just wept. And we walked back to our house. And I think that was sort of our point where we realized that like, we can't do this, that we're not going to be able to continue in this. And this is not healthy for either of us. And we're not the solution to the problems that are here, was what the thought began to come. And Amy, but she packed up, took a shower, went back to the hospital again. And that was really tough for us. We couldn't survive there. And it was going to kill us, was the easiest way to think about it. And we knew that we were broken. We knew that we were burnout beyond belief, that we were just so, I called it charred, that it's like when you stick something in the fire, eventually it doesn't burn out anymore. It just burns to ash, and the ash doesn't light on fire either, and so we did that, and that was July, and we were talking to our Samaritan's Purse country director that was there, and he could see it, and the folks didn't know that that the main Samaritan's Purse office didn't really see that until one day we said, we're breaking out the Fruity Pebbles, was the joke. Because we saved Fruity Pebbles in an Nalgene just to kind of have a taste of America. And we mixed up some milk because it all came powdered. But we mixed up some milk and we had Fruity Pebbles, and we took a picture of us, and they could see us. We were gaunt. We had lost a lot of weight because we weren't eating. We were just working. They saw it and they said, we need to get you home. And Amy was still kind of resistant and said, well, let's keep working. There's not a long-term solution for this yet. And finally, we did have a long-term solution in September. And I said, Amy, we've got to stop. We have to call it. We're not functioning here, and we're not doing well here. And we talked to the Samaritan's person. They said, all right, let's work on finding you a different mission hospital. And we were still angry about that because we just said, well, we're just going to call it.
Mm-hmm. Your compassion is what sticks out to me throughout the previous episode and this one. Like, you are so driven by your compassion for others. And that is beautiful. And that it seems like maybe that feeds you to a certain place, and that gives you a willingness to keep going. Yeah. And it's beautiful. But I think a lot of people who are in mission organizations and situations don't know when to pull back until you see some of those, an actual picture of yourself, or circumstances. The example of the waves beating her in
yeah.
2 foot of water, drowning.
Yeah.
Like, what a perfect picture for you to stop and evaluate the whole situation. And then ask God, what is his purpose for you at this point? Because just like he loves those people in Liberia, he loves you, and he wants good for you, and he's going to work his purpose and plan in your life. And he's going to work the purpose and plan for Liberia, whether that's with you or with someone else.
And that's the way to let go of, yeah.
Yes.
And I think that was the lesson that we were having to learn very painfully, was that a lot of people identify themselves as, hi, my name is Nathan, I'm a nurse practitioner, or in Amy's case, hi, I'm Amy, I'm a surgeon. And people want to identify themselves by their job or what they can do. But in reality, through Christ, that's all you need. And that's all your identity should be, is that, hi, I'm Nathan, I'm a Christian, I love Jesus first. And all the priorities beyond that point are superfluous. It's Christ alone. And so that's what we were very harshly taught through Liberia, was to that our identity is in Christ. And I think we see that now. It was very painful in the moment. And we had it in our time in Kenya too, that somebody asked us, like, what's the Lord teaching you in your life? And it's a very good pointed question that you should ask yourself every once in a while. And my reply is almost always patience and humility and patience. And so in that moment, the Lord was humbling us, and I didn't know we needed it, and the Lord did, though. And it's a very painful lesson that we had to go through to do it.
I appreciate the reality of what missions looks like sometimes. Yeah. It's not rainbows and sunshine.
Oh, no. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it's beautiful to see it, and you cherish it when it happens. But a lot of times too, it's a daily difficulty, and it's something. I'll say this too, that we really had a lot of difficulty, just like that blog post. We had a lot of difficulty just being able to admit that we were having a lot of trouble, because we had been both overseas. We knew what we were signing up for, so to speak, and we expected that, and so it was difficult, and even we had so much shame that about it, that we were somehow we were failing, that somehow we couldn't stick with it, that we were not strong enough, that we were not good enough, that somehow all the, I don't know, for Amy's part, what would that be, 15 years of preparation and my 10 years or 7 years of preparation weren't enough to make us resilient enough to survive in a difficult environment on the mission field. That somehow we were representing God poorly somehow, that we were a failure. And that's what we felt was that. And so we came home too, and we were, I wouldn't say ashamed, but I would say that we were scared. Because who wants to hear that we felt like we washed out, that we were somehow not good missionaries, that somehow we don't know what it would do with our lives, and we're so traumatized we don't want to know what to do with our lives. But at the same time, we came home to our church, and it was not that. And we were so afraid. We didn't want to we got back for kind of what happened was we were sent to Kenya. They said, we're going to send you to Kenya. That's a lot better of a situation. You're not going to be really needed in the hospital, Amy. It'll be kind of just, you can finish out your 2 years, and you can either show up or you don't have to. And so it was a lot different situation. We knew it was going to be better staffing wise. But when we got there, the folks at the mission compound were like, you guys are way past burnout. And I don't think you should be here. To be honest, I don't know if you should be here. But it's okay if you come back, is what they said. If you're able to come back, we'd love to have you. And that was so much of a different answer than what we were expecting in Liberia, where they were just get in the line, get done with the program, take care of patients, and don't come talk to me, so to speak. And so through the folks there in Chogoria, Kenya, they said, you need to go back and you need to heal before you can come back here. And it was true. We would, Amy was having awful nightmares, and it was PTSD. And so we went back to the States, and it was December of 2018 that we came back to the States, and we were just afraid so much to go back to church to see everybody. And we wanted to put on like a good show and be like, oh yeah, well, we don't know why we left either, or something like that. And it was not like that. And Reggie and Tina, we had kept them informed, and we kept a couple other folks informed that were really praying alongside of us at the church. And they loved us, and that's what we needed. And they knew it, and we didn't. And they just loved us, and just put their arms around us, and it was way different than we were expecting. We were expecting like conversations like, how could this have happened? What can we do differently in the future? It was just, welcome home. Welcome back. And what can we do? And it was beautiful. And that's what we needed. And then we spent time doing kind of an intensive debrief up in Michigan. There's a place called Alongside, and they work with missionaries. And we took a lot of intensive like mental health stuff, and we took a lot of counseling, and we worked through a lot of things. We weren't perfect, but at the same time, like the Lord was using that situation to help us heal enough to find the ability to do what we needed to do in Kenya and go back to missions. And so we healed enough to go back to Kenya in January, and we kind of said our goodbyes, and everybody gave us hugs and still loved us. Yeah.
Because I think what you have said, in being honest about your physical limitations in ministering physically to people in such difficult scenarios without any physical support of people saying, I got your next shift. I'll take care of the thing you started in the hospital. Yeah. Just having no one to put your back up against. I'm sure that speaks volumes to people who are struggling through saying, I'm not going to let these people down. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to I have people financially supporting me that I'm not going to let down. I'm not going to let the Lord down because I'm a representative of Him.
Yeah. And you signed me up for this.
Yes. Yes. So how do I turn my back on this? Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing the reality of the difficult also. And we know you saw joy. We know you saw goodness and miracles and God's mercies to you. Mm-hmm. But in those painful things, being able to say, we're going to need to walk away. Mm-hmm. And that is what exactly was right for you.
It was, and it was very difficult though. And Amy and I, we function kind of, we're both independent thinkers, and normally, like we make decisions together. And finally though, like I had to be the head of the household in this situation, because I said, Amy, we have to go home. Like Amy would have continued indefinitely in this with her ability to do it, and I know she would have, but we were burnt out, and I knew we were, and I said we had to call it. Like we can't take this anymore.
Would you tell us generally what the therapy was that you got, that intensive to kind of work through this trauma that you had been living in for months and months and months, day after day?
It was giving us a language. It wasn't really, I wouldn't say it wasn't the therapy itself. Let me state that. One, it was the Lord, first off. But it allowed us to kind of see the language in order for us to communicate and start to process the things that we needed to from what had happened. And that's what they really were training us to do, was to be able to start processing in a healthy way what had happened. And we started working towards that. And through we did daily counseling. We did a lot of other stuff as well, group therapies and things. And with that counseling and with we had our own counselor assigned to us, and we had kind of group therapy stuff that we did. And through that, we started at least to be able to have a language to communicate to each other with, about what had happened, and we could start working together on healing on that. I don't think that we're, well, I'll say treat it more than heal. I don't think we're ever going to truly heal till we're home, so to speak. But I think it the same way to deal with it on a daily basis. We didn't have a language for that because at this point in time, like, we had built up enough of, I guess, gumption and stubbornness in our lives that, like, there wasn't.
We call that resilience.
But I mean, there wasn't there wasn't a hurdle that we had not been able to cross. Like, in an American context, like, you're always like, yeah, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps, step up and show up and do it, and it will you'll get done with it. But it wasn't like that, and we had to realize that pulling ourselves up by the bootstraps isn't going to fix it. And we had to let go and let God, so to speak.
So what were those conversations with God? Like, how did you give him that hurt
Mm.
and help allow him to heal you?
Lament. That was the easiest way to say. Like, you would just bring everything, and you would just cry and weep and say, Lord, this is an absolutely awful situation. And it is. And I think I kind of dwelled back on a lot of South Sudan things. I had originally at that point too would say, strengthen me, O Lord, let me be strong. But eventually the language just changed. It would then become, Lord, just let me just dwell in your strength. Like, I know you're strong. I don't know if I am. And so that's what it would be. It was just, and it's hard though, because you want to hold on to it and you're stubborn like that, but you just have to, like, let it go and say, Lord, I'm not strong enough. You are, though, and you'll do what you need to do. And if it's with me or without me, you'll do what you need to do. And that's what we had to learn.
Yeah. And now in your life, you are still on a mission field as a foster father.
Yeah.
How has those strengths and the things you walked through and relying on God helped you in general in being a good father to hurting?
Well, I think the miracle of getting our kids in general, like, we kind of laid out some criteria for God and said, well, I don't want to say that we laid it out, but we said a lot of things have to happen, Lord, in order for this to happen. And it did. And the Lord did it all quickly, succinctly, and we just walked through open doors, so to speak, to get these kids in our lives. And so we tell ourselves, if God had not intended for this to happen, he wouldn't have done it. And so therefore we just continue to trust, despite the heartache, despite the difficulties. It's a new set of difficulties. I'll say that I'm used to mission hospital. I'm not used to parenting. And it's a whole different set of things that you have to be concerned about, a whole different set of things that are difficult to shepherd kids. And we'd never been parents. We just weren't blessed that way biologically. But with these kids, it's been different, and it's beautiful to get to disciple kids. It's really difficult though to see the horrors that they've experienced, and those are just normal things for them. And to see just the amount of sin in this world, it's another, oh Lord Jesus, come quickly. Why do these things have to happen to these kids? And it's a new set of trauma, but it's good that we have that language that we can speak, so to speak, with each other.
I see so many parallels. And I'm so grateful that the Lord had already taught you to walk in faith with him and trust his ways and his purposes in your life. And so that you quickly get in line and say, yes, God, get in front. Because we know that your plan is perfect for us.
Yeah.
Nathan, this has been a privilege and a blessing to my heart. I think that the things you said are going to build up so many and encourage so many. Thank you for your honesty,
no problem.
Your authenticity, and just your willingness to talk about the hard stuff. often people who have been on the mission field feel like they can only say the good stuff.
We felt the same. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you being willing to share it all for God's glory.
And it's been good too to be able to just like, because of the things that we've experienced, we identify it easier in other missionaries too, and I think we have a level of sympathy and empathy that we can care for other missionaries. It's a greater ability, I'll say that, and I think it's good to be able to just encourage others in Christ and to be able to kind of step beside people and say, "Hey, I know what you're going through." At least I may have at least a little bit more of a glimmer, so to speak.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Thank you, Nathan, for sharing your story for His glory.
Thank you so much for having me.